Thank you for joining me today at A Touch of Blue Studio with Drawing with Grandma. Welcome back to part 2 of this demonstration of this small oil painting of a deer. You might remember during the last lesson I had a toned canvas. I developed the drawing directly with a brush with my browns, and then we laid in the foundational underpainting, and this is what we came up with for the first stages of the painting. Today we are going to develop this painting further and work on some details. So what I've done is I have begun to deepen the browns in the background and on the deer itself. I had to wait until this painting was dry, of course not completely dry, but enough to where I could layer paint without disrupting the underpainting. So right now I'm taking in some violet blues. One of them is mixed with cerulean blue and another with ultramarine blue, and it's just two varying violets that will enhance the background. So in those snow drifts, I'm trying to find the shadowed areas and develop this beautiful violet blue into all the areas that would have a hint of shadow, just to demonstrate some movement and shifting shadows on that snow. Of course, I'm going to leave the highlights where the sun is hitting the tops of the snowdrifts and help them coordinate with the deer itself as it's standing. So I'm kind of going back and forth with the lightest lights on the snow throughout the painting, and then also taking in the violets again within the shadows and trying to create that contrast between the two. That will help unify the painting, to have coordinated color schemes throughout, and to help the snow look like it's working together from in the background and in the foreground. I also want to put some snow against his head in the background, even more than what I see in the reference, so that his head will stand out a little bit. So there's little tricks you can do to make sure you allow your focal point, which in this case is the deer head, and of course that beautiful stream of light on the snow that's right behind him, going from one side to the other. So that stream of light is going to help centralize this deer as the focal point in this little painting. So now I want to develop some texture in the snow by trying to add a little bit of a feel that there's some piled snow, that his feet are in the snow, and there's little pile-ups right by his feet. I want the foreground a little bit lighter, and it will help it look closer to the viewer, and the darker snow will be in the background where more shadow is taking place, and will give the illusion of some space. So, as I said, he's not completely dry yet, but I want to make this tail appear soft and full. So I don't want to push too hard, but just to take in some deeper browns, some reddish browns, and to help make it look full and fluffy. Also, I will need to make sure that anatomically, which is the structure of the body of this deer, looks realistic. So I will need to rethink the shapes of the ears, where that hip is, the turn of the neck. All of those things need to be correctly drawn again. Sometimes when you're painting, you might lose your drawing a little bit under the paint. And so often you have to move the paint, manipulate it in order to reestablish your drawing. And now and then there's little areas that just need re-emphasizing. So there's a nice turn of that hip that I want to be sure looks natural. And I'm trying to blend that tummy so there's a beautiful sense that it's round and full. This right hip here needs a lot of correcting. Not a lot of correcting, but a little bit more smooth form to it, so it looks round. I don't want to lose those little hair marks I already painted, but I'm altering the color just a little bit. This is the fun stage of the painting. I really enjoy the later stages where I'm doing the finishing touches, correcting and enriching color. The early stages are fun as well, but I find them a little more challenging. This stage is just much more satisfying, and it's fun to finish it up. I might even come back to this one again and when it's completely dry and just try to dramatize it a little bit more. I may even go with a richer violet in the snow just to contrast with the beautiful yellowish brown that she is. And then I could even probably put some more detail in that head. This white tail has a lot of fluff on the very bottom point, on the sides, under the belly. And then I'm probably going to exaggerate the highlights on the left side of the legs and the left side of his head just to re-emphasize the light source. I lost the little eyeball highlights, so I'll need to redo those. I'm going to put a little rim of light here, strong sunlight hitting the left side of her head. I want to emphasize the edges of her against the background, but I don't want to create lines. So every time I come to an edge, I need to be sure that it's lightly and softly painted so that there's no harsh outlines, but that we're using color and value in order to separate her from the background and from that snow. Need to fix up that nose, the nostrils. There's a little bit of highlight on her. And just some final touches. Well, this one has been a lot of fun. I think I just want to re-emphasize the right sides of the legs and anywhere where there might be a little bit of shadow, just to help with that contrast. And while I have that black or deep brown on my brush, I'm going to go ahead and re-emphasize some of the branches in the background, deepen those shadowed areas. I don't want it to become a focal point in the painting, but just to add a little bit more interest and variety. Some nice painting strokes. Make sure it looks good against her. Little final touch-ups, little highlights on her. Show that light, reflected light on her. And that's about it. Here she is. Thank you for joining me for part 1 and 2 of this little study in oil of this deer. And for joining me here at A Touch of Blue Studio with Drawing and Painting with Grandma.